The shove came out of nowhere, hard enough to knock her forward, to send the folders in her hands scattering across the hallway like wounded birds. Gasps rippled through the corridor of Camp Raven's main command building as the Marine who pushed her stepped back, scoffing. "Watch where you're going," he barked. "Do you even know where you are? Do you know who I am?" She didn't look up at first. She simply knelt, gathering her papers with calm, deliberate hands, though a spark of quiet fire burned in her steady breathing. Her name was Lieutenant Commander Alina Reyes. And while the Marine standing over her had no idea, half the quiet legends whispered across the Pacific were stories about her. But she never bragged, she never corrected anyone, she simply rose, slowly, gracefully, dusting off her uniform as the hallway fell into an uneasy silence. And then everything changed, because at that exact moment, the doors at the end of the hall swung open and Master Chief Gabriel Holt, the most respected Navy SEAL on the West Coast, a man whose presence alone could straighten the spine of generals, stepped through. And when he saw her, his expression transformed. He stopped mid-stride, heels snapped together, and he saluted. "Good morning, ma'am," he said loud enough for half the command to hear. "My team and I are honored you're here." The hallway froze. The Marine who'd shoved her blinked twice, his bravado draining from his face like someone opened a valve in his chest. Alina simply nodded, as if the salute were nothing more than a passing courtesy. But to everyone else, it detonated like a bomb. The woman nobody recognized, Alina Reyes, had always preferred silence to ceremony. Her file, sealed so tightly that even senior officers could only guess at its contents, hinted at a resume that sounded more myth than fact. She'd grown up the daughter of migrant farm workers, too small and too quiet to fit the world's idea of a warrior. She endured years of whispers, mockery, doubt, and overcame every inch of it with discipline that bordered on ruthless. She became a cryptologic warfare specialist, then a tactical analyst, then an embedded liaison to special operations teams. The rumors said she'd cracked a code that saved an entire joint task force in the Philippines, that she'd guided SEALs through radio blackouts deep in hostile valleys, that she'd once walked 6 miles with a wounded Marine on her back after an ambush in Kandahar. But outside those who'd served with her, no one knew her face. And she liked it that way. Which made what happened next even more shocking. The Marine WHO pushed her. Corporal Tanner Briggs wasn't a bad Marine. In fact, he'd just returned from a brutal deployment and was fighting ghosts no one else saw. He'd been jittery, on edge, struggling to adjust to quiet hallways after months of explosions. But none of that excused what he did. And now, staring at the Master Chief saluting the woman he'd shoved, Tanner felt something far heavier than embarrassment. He felt shame. "Ma'am," he stammered. I didn't realize. You didn't need to," Alina said gently. "Respect shouldn't depend on rank." Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't sharp. It was disappointed. And that hit Tanner harder than being court-martialed ever could. "Call to the war room." Master Chief Holt stepped beside her. "Ma'am, we got your request." The teams gathered in the war room. "Perfect," she replied. Tanner blinked. War room, team, what was happening? The Master Chief turned to him. "Corporal Briggs," he said, "you're coming too." Tanner stiffened. "Master Chief, you made a mistake," Holt cut in. "But I don't throw away good Marines. And you're about to see exactly why this woman deserves more respect than most people in uniform will ever earn." The words landed with the weight of mountains. Tanner followed. The briefing that changed everything. Inside the war room, a group of hardened SEALs stood up when Alina entered. These were men who treated salutes like rare gems, yet every one of them straightened at her presence. On the screens were maps of a mountainous border region, terrain rough enough to swallow entire units without a trace. A reconnaissance team, 5 Rangers, had gone missing after intercepting a weapons convoy run by a brutal militia. Time was running out. "We don't have reliable intel on their location," one SEAL said. "The area's radio dead." "Not anymore," Alina replied. She tapped a keyboard, and encrypted waves and spikes appeared across the screen. "This pattern," she continued, "isn't static. It's interference caused by a foreign scrambler, and it only shows up when someone nearby tries to transmit." The room leaned in. "It's crude, but predictable. And there's only one valley narrow enough for it to bounce like this." She highlighted a region, an area so obscured and dangerous that most teams treated it as a last resort. "If I'm right, the Rangers are here," she said quietly. "Alive, but not for much longer." Master Chief Holt nodded once. "Then that's where we're going." He looked at Tanner. And you're coming with us, Corporal. Tanner's heart kicked into his throat. Me? Why? Alina answered instead, because you need to see what your anger blinded you to. The mission. Hours later, Tanner found himself strapped into a helicopter beside the SEALs he had once only heard about in rumors, the silent legends, the impossible operators, the ghosts who made miracles out of shadows. And at their center was Alina. Not nervous, not rattled, calm, focused, as if turbulence bent around her instead of shaking her. When they hit the LZ, everything went wrong at once: gunfire, dust storms, shifting terrain. The militia wasn't just entrenched, they were hunting. Tanner panicked when rounds snapped past his helmet. But Alina, she crouched behind a rock, analyzing comm signals under fire, adjusting frequencies by millimeters, guiding Holt's team through a labyrinth of stone and sandstorms with surgeon-like precision. Shift left, she said into her mic. 2 hostiles behind the ridge, wait for the wind gust, now. The SEALs moved like water. Enemies fell. The valley opened, and there, tied up but alive, were the missing Rangers. Tanner stared, breathless. She found them. Under fire. She actually found them. When a militia fighter charged from behind a boulder, Tanner froze. He couldn't even raise his rifle in time. Alina was faster. She pushed him aside, firing a controlled burst that dropped the attacker. When the echoes faded, she touched his shoulder. You're okay. Her voice wasn't triumphant. It wasn't mocking. It was steady, human, forgiving. And Tanner couldn't hold back the crack in his voice. I'm so sorry, he whispered. For earlier. For everything. I know, she said softly. Just be better tomorrow. The return. Back at Camp Raven, as the rescued Rangers were rushed to medical and the SEALs unloaded their gear, Tanner stood in the courtyard, still processing the woman he had shoved, the woman who saved him, the woman who saved everyone. Master Chief Holt came to stand beside him. Corporal, he said, you asked earlier who she is. Tanner swallowed hard. Yes, Master Chief. Holt looked toward Alina, who was speaking quietly with a medic, her uniform dusty, her expression calm. That woman, Holt said, is the reason half my men are still alive. She's the ghost the enemy fears and the ally we thank God for. He paused. Next time you wonder who someone is, start by assuming they're worth more respect than you think. Tanner nodded, eyes burning. He walked toward Alina, stood straight, and saluted. A crisp, trembling salute. She returned it with a gentle smile. No anger. No pride. Just grace.